Hello, welcome to Gemini Star Spiritual Wellness. Thank you for joining me today. I'm so excited that you're here. Hope you're all doing well. And I'm so excited for you for all the new subscribers and new viewers watching this channel. I'm just so excited to have this channel going and to have all this information on here for you. It's just so exciting to me to be able to share it with all of you. So thank you for joining me. I'm sorry if it's a little dark today. It's overcast outside and I don't have the pretty sunlight coming in like I usually do. So I've been messing with the lighting to try to get it to be a little bit brighter. So hopefully you can see me okay. So today's topic is a very important topic and I'm going to do it in a two-part series, two different videos because it's just a lot of information. So I'm going to try to keep it to a decent time. I don't want it to get too long, so we're going to break it up into two. But it's important information because this information is going to become very relevant over the next, well, I'd say over the rest of this year and into 2026. And there's going to be a lot of information coming out about star seeds. That's what the topic is today. But also the galactic space boys, as I like to call them. There's going to be a lot of information coming out about them as well. So I definitely felt like this was a good time to get this information out. So I'm going to be first talking about what star seeds are and the galactics, and then I'm going to go into my personal experiences as an Arcturian star seed and about how I found out I was a star seed and, what that experience has been like and the information that I've gathered from them. So I definitely, I just think this is such a cool topic. I really do. And I'm excited to share it with you. And I'm going to admit some of the stories I'm going to tell you experiences that I'm going to tell you in this video and in the next video that I've never even told anybody. This is the first time I'm public about some of these experiences because they were very private. I held them very close to my chest is a way of putting it because they're so unique. And it's kind of hard to talk about this in public. You just don't go up and say, hey, guess what? I'm a starseed. I've got all these cool experiences. So I had to be very careful about who I told about these experiences. But I feel like now's the time to come out with this information because, like I said, it's going to be very relevant going through the rest of this year into next year. What I'm feeling is we're going to see more and more disclosure and information about this coming out. So there are galactic space races out there. My nickname for them is Space Boys, and I don't know. I think it's a cute nickname. I know there's females in the races too, but I just call them Space Boys for short. But there's many different space boy races out there, and I'm talking about the benevolent races. So these are races that are very loving, full of love and light, very advanced, much higher vibrational level than us, and then from the higher dimensions. And basically, they are helping us, but they're doing it kind of in a low key, behind the scenes way. So it's just in a nutshell, that's what they're doing. So these different races, these different galactic races are there's so many of them. There's all different ones, and they come from all different parts of the universe. All different star systems. You've got Alpha Centauri. You've got Sirians. With the Sirius star system, you've heard of the star Sirius. There's Hathors. There's Lyrans, blue avians. There are Andromedans, Arcturians, there's Palladians, there's all different types of star seeds from all different star systems. And I didn't really know much about this growing up. I was a person, I enjoyed space. I was very intrigued by space. Now I think I know why, but I didn't know anything about star seeds or these galactic races. I hadn't heard anything about them as a child growing up or anything. So this was all new experience, new information to me. But apparently they're from, there's benevolent races from all over that are helping us. So they're doing it in kind of a how can I put it, a cloaked way, behind the scenes way, and there's different reasons for that. One reason is they know that we have been conditioned to be afraid of them and programmed to be afraid of them. So that's why they're not going to show up with a bunch of ships and just boom show up over Earth. Be like, hey, what's up, man? We're here. They're not going to do that because they know that people would freak out. So they don't want to scare the Earth Terrans, they don't want to freak people out and everyone, panic. So they've been helping us in kind of a behind the scenes way. But their presence is getting increasingly known. I've noticed lately over like the last year or two, there's been a lot more UFO sightings that are popping up on the internet. People are seeing things more and more, and it feels like this information is starting to come out more and more about their existence and that, they're here to, what they're doing and they're here to help us because they're literally all in our skies right now. Like there's a bunch of ships out there, but we don't see them because they have cloaking technology. So you have to remember these races are way more advanced than we are. And their technology is way more advanced than we are, the technology we have. So they have cloaking technology that makes their ships look like clouds, and so that they can hide, they can just blend in with the atmosphere and we don't even notice that they're there. But there's ships all over the place. And like I said, I think that's becoming more and more known. People are starting to pick up on that, that they're all around up there. So, but that's one of the reasons why they haven't, been more visual, is they just don't want to scare us. They don't want people to panic and be afraid of us, be afraid of them. So they have to do it in a very slow, methodical way of basically making themselves known. And another reason is universal law. So they are not allowed to directly intervene with the affairs of us here on Earth. Sorry, my nose is itchy. With the affairs here on Earth. So basically, they they can't, they can kind of influence things on the in the background a little bit, but they can't directly intervene. And there's a reason for that. There's a universal law that they're not allowed to. They're not allowed to directly intervene. And they have a different ways of helping us. Like I said, cloaking in the skies, and they're doing things behind the scenes to help us, but they can't directly, intervene. And the reason why they can't is because we have to basically take care of ourselves. Like they can't come down and save us. We have to be able to do it ourselves. We have to be able to lift our vibration ourselves on the planet. We have to be able to rise our consciousness on our own. So they can help us kind of in a back way, like a behind the scenes way in a sense, but they can't directly help us do those things because that's on us. We're responsible for that. And that's part of our experience. If they were to come down and do it for us, then we wouldn't have that experience of growing, of our ascension process, of our, growing our higher consciousness, going to that higher vibration. And they don't want it to, we have to do that on our own. We can't, that's part of our growth in becoming aware, right? In our ascension process. So they can't do that for us. We have to do it ourselves. So that's why they're very hands off with that. But they do have a way that they can influence things in a positive way here on Earth without directly intervening, and that's star seeds. So star seeds, there's millions of star seeds around the planet, and they really started. And I do believe that star seeds have kind of always been on the planet. This is what I've picked up on. Like they've, over time, they've come to Earth here and there, throughout time to do different missions and such. But I feel like in mass, there's been a lot more star seeds coming to Earth over the last couple decades, probably from like the 40s and 50s till now, because of us making this great shift into the 5D Earth and going into that higher level of consciousness. It's like they're very much needed now on the planet. So that's why I feel like a lot of star seeds have come into in mass, in a huge group here on the planet at this time. So, like I said, there's millions of star seeds from all over. And what their mission is, what our mission is as a star seed, is basically to help lift the vibration of the planet, to help lift the consciousness of the planet, and to help spread love and light, to help replace the grid. So we're replacing the old 3D grids to the 5D grids, and to help that earth make that help the earth make that transition from from a 3D dimensional planet to a 5D dimensional planet, and help make that huge shift up through the 4th D and going into the 5D. So the love light energy is so important. And that's one thing that I really learned as a star seed myself, is how important the love light energy is. Like each star seed is like a little super little powerful, like a giant battery beacon of love light energy. So if you get millions of them across the planet, just imagine how much that influences the energy of the planet and how it can uplift the energy of the planet. So basically, that's their mission here is to help the Earth Terrans, as they call the Earthlings that are not starseeds, help them with the planet shift up into that higher level that we're going to. So, so now I'm going to talk about my experience for a little bit as a starseed. I'll start talking into that, and one of the things that, well, actually, my first experience, and it wasn't so much with the Arcturians. This was just an experience I had as a child, but it's probably somehow related to what happened when I got older. But so as a child, I was about 8, 9 years old, and I was in my bedroom one night, and I wasn't asleep. I couldn't fall asleep. I'm just kind of hanging out there, and I was looking out the window, and I lived in the country, so there wasn't a lot of lights around, so it was very it could get very dark. And I remember this one night, I looked out and there was this, sorry, my nose is still itchy. There was this, like, I guess, I saw like a UFO or some kind of craft that showed up, that it kind of came out of nowhere, and it showed up and it wasn't that far away from my house, and it was like hovering over a spot on the land that my family owned. We had a lot of acreage and it was just kind of hanging out there. And I knew, like, it didn't make any noise, so I knew it didn't behave like an airplane, it didn't behave like a helicopter. And it was like it wasn't really big, it was more of a smaller size, but it didn't make, and the weird thing is it made no noise. It was like, you know, it had lights on it and it just was completely silent. And it just hovered over this spot of land um, for a couple minutes. And I remember as I was looking at it, I didn't feel afraid. I didn't have any fear. It was more like a sense of curiosity. And I was kind of like, that's pretty cool. I remember thinking as a kid, like, that's, but I knew intuitively it wasn't human. Like, I just knew, I could tell that it was something different. And maybe back then I could feel the energy of it coming off and I knew it wasn't human. I don't know. But I just remember being like, it's pretty interesting. It's pretty cool. And I just was mesmerized by this thing. And then it just shot off after a few minutes. It just took off. So it went from like 0 to 100 really fast and just went gone and it was over the horizon. And then, that was it. And, so I thought that was pretty cool, and of course, I didn't tell anybody. I was very quiet about it because I knew people wouldn't believe me anyway, so I just didn't say anything, but it just was like a personal experience I had that I was like, "Yeah, that's pretty neat." So decades after that, there was nothing, I didn't see anything else, no contact, nothing happened till about 2015. And once I figured out I was a starseed, now I kind of wonder, like, were they checking up on me? Is that my star family looking out for me? And then maybe it was. I don't know. I just, I thought to myself once I figured all this out later, I thought, gee, maybe that was what was going on that night. But so let's fast forward to 2015. I'm much, it's decades later, I'm a grown up. And, like I said, there's nothing happened like that since that night, so it's no contact, nothing. So, I'm basically living like a normal life, okay? And my, psychic abilities and gifts increased. Like, I always had them even as a kid, when I was 3, 4, I had them, but as I got to my adult years, it increased, and things started happening more and more to me, and it started expanding and, things really, but I felt like 2015, like, around that time frame is when things really took off with my gifts and abilities, and it was around the same time that this was happening. So, it kind of makes me wonder, like, if I was just being like, so like, it's almost like a switch went off. If I was being turned on, so to speak, it makes me wonder because it all kind of started really happening, coming full force at the same time with with the abilities and then this interaction with the Arcturians. So what happened with the Arcturians is, one night I was trying to sleep. I'm laying there. I'm not asleep yet, and they, communicate through telepathy, because they're much higher, like I said, they're much more evolved than we are. So they communicate through telepathic means. And so I kept hearing this voice tell me, all night long, it was saying Arcturian, Andromedan, and rings of Saturn. And I was like, "What is going on?" And it was like, uh, having voices, like hearing voices tell me things like this wasn't totally abnormal to me because, like I said, my abilities were kicking up and I was having experiences with deceased people on a regular. So that didn't bother me. But I'm like, I wasn't afraid or anything of hearing the voice. It was more like, the words. I'm like, well, I'd never even heard the word Arcturian. I didn't know what that was. And rings of Saturn. Now, as a space person, I like space, always did, even as a kid, and maybe now I know why. But as I knew Andromeda was the closest galaxy to our Milky Way. So I was like, okay, well, I knew that what that was. But the other two, I had no idea. I was like, this is so strange. And so it went on all night, and you can imagine what I was thinking, like, what's going on. And so the next morning, when I finally, morning came and I looked it up, like, what is this? So I looked up Arcturian on the internet. And it just like the internet, like all this information just came at me about them. And it talked about, they were a galactic space boy race and that they're, very advanced and that they come from the Arcturus system. So Arcturus is the name of the star in their system. And there's a bunch of planets around that star, and that's where they come from. But what was interesting about it is when I'm looking through the information about them, trying to figure out what I was hearing, what was this word, the rings of Saturn came up. It said that they have a ship. It said like they're known to have a ship in the rings of Saturn in our Milky Way galaxy. And I was just totally blown away by this. I mean, you can just imagine what I was thinking. I was like, whoa, basically looking at this information, like, what is going on? I remember thinking that, like, what is going on? So that was my very first interaction with them. And then then it became a more regular thing. So it wasn't every night, but it became a regular, and it usually happened at night. And it was kind of like the interactions would happen like, how when you lay down in bed and you get your little covers on, you're all nice and snuggled up in bed, but you're not asleep yet. That's when it would happen. And it just very interesting interactions. And so I did end up seeing them. In the beginning it was more like auditory, they were just speaking to me. But then as time went on, I did see them and got those interactions, and I'll explain those experiences to you probably in the next video. But so basically, the next time I remember them telling me, like, after that first initial contact, I remember them telling me that they're like, well, you have these gifts and abilities to help to help the humans, to help people on planet Earth. Like, you're here, with these gifts and abilities, I guess, meaning my spiritual gifts and abilities to help other people. And I was like, okay, well, that sounds, that sounds good to me. That's what I'm doing with it. And I never felt, the interesting thing is my relationship with them increased, and these interactions increased. I never was afraid of them. Like, you could instantly feel the love light coming off of them. I never was afraid. And maybe because um my soul is Arcturian, like they're my star family, that's where I originally come from. Maybe I guess you could say there was a sense of familiar, like, because I'm one of them, it's like I never had that sense of fear, or it's like just like, okay, it's like, I just felt connected in that way because I am one of them in human form. So I thought, okay, that's good, here to help other people. That's good. And then to alleviate any questions about it, they flat out told me, after that, they said that my body is human, but my soul is Arcturian. And, just to let me know flat out that that's the case. And I was like, all right, and of course, I'm like, what do you say to that? You're like, okay, what else do you say? So I was like, all right, but it's like I said, and then my psychic abilities really increased at this time too. So it's like all happening at one time. So in a way, it's just a lot to absorb, a lot of information to absorb. And of course, I didn't tell people about this. I mean, you just don't go to people and say, hey, guess what? The Arcturians are showing up and they told me I'm one of them and I'm a starseed. I mean, unless somebody's a starseed themselves and understands, I wouldn't say anything. I did tell my children, but I really didn't talk to people about this because it was, very private, because it's, and part of it was I was trying to absorb this stuff myself, like trying to get used to this idea myself. So that was another reason why I didn't say anything to people because it was like, what are you gonna say? How are you gonna explain this to people? And and so it's kind of like, all this started building up and it was just very interesting. And one thing I noticed and before I get into the next experience, one thing that's interesting to me is the things I found out over time. So this is information I found out about myself, since that first encounter, is every time they showed up to talk to me or I would see them, it was they would always address me as commander. And I was like, huh. And what's interesting about that is I started having visions. And so when people ask me like, Tamara, when you have a vision, what's it like? And I'm like, well, and the best way I can describe it to you that what I experience is in the new Dune movies, you have Paul Atreides and he's having visions in the movies and it's like he sees fragments of information. So he's getting visual downloads like in fragments and they're talking to him at the same time. Most of the time, that's what it's like for me. Sometimes I just see the visual without the word, without the talking. And sometimes it's just talking with no visual. It just depends. But usually it's both of them together. So I was starting at this time, when they're showing up and they told me, I was an Arcturian starseed and all this. I started having visions of being on a spaceship, being like the in charge of the spaceship. Like I'm the one that's telling orders and I was like, talking to them and basically on the bridge, like, like it's a Star Trek on the bridge, giving orders and stuff. And they kept calling me commander. Every time they would show up, they would call me commander and address it as a title. I guess that was my title. So then I started putting it together. And then some other experiences I had, I figured out that basically I'm an Arcturian commander and that of ships. So I'm in the military, and that's what I was. That's what I was. I guess before my time here on Earth, and directing ships and being part of the military. I do remember the ships. They being having like healing centers on the ships because the and that makes sense because the Arcturians are known to be healers and they have very high technology for healing. And I remember having people on the ships that they are from other star systems, and their quarters. I remember this one room. I took them to their quarter, and we could make the quarter be any like we could change the room to any way we wanted it to make them feel more at home, to be like what they would like what their places at home would have been, to make them more welcome. So it's kind of like a holographic technology. I don't know how to describe it, but I remember like the inside of where their quarters was looked like what the inside of their houses would have looked like. It was really cool. But anyway, so they kept calling me commander, and then I started having these visions of being on a ship. And so then I had some unique experiences with that definitely added to it that allowed me to put it together to figure out that, I was in the military. So going back to one of the more unique experiences I had was they started teaching me kind of like quantum physics topics, I guess is the best way to put it. Um, in different mechanics, quantum physics, so stuff on a real deep level like that. And I remember one time they came to me and it was just like it was almost like being in school, it's a way to put it. Like, and I would get into this like vision, and they would be, and it's kind of like fragmented. So it's like I would have the vision and then I'd snap out of it. And then later on the night be like the next part of it. So I'm going to describe that. So this one time, they came to me and this is in the beginning when they first started really coming and interacting with me. And they're trying to tell me that time is all happening at once. And the past, the present, and the future is all happening at the same time. Now, I remember like my little, human brain, it's like, wait, how can that be? Like how could this be? But what was unique about this experience and what I remember is they're teaching me this, we're talking about it. And I remember like I had to use the restroom. Or it's like and I'm like, I gotta go to the restroom. I told them, they're like, They're like, "All right, go ahead, go ahead and go. It's okay, go ahead and go." And it's like, how can I describe it? It's like it just stopped. Like everything froze, and sometimes it'd be like mid-sentence, like, "Okay, go ahead and go. Like, we'll wait for you." So, so I snap out of it, go to the bathroom, come back, and it's like, boom, they're waiting for me. I lay down, I'm back into it again. And that happened like twice during the night where they're like, "Yeah, go ahead, go. That's okay. We're here. Yeah, we'll wait for you." It's just unique. And then in the future, I'd have interactions with them. It's like they would it's kind of like when you're watching, you remember the old VHS tapes and you push a button, and hit pause, it just freezes. And then I'd come back from the bathroom and boom, it'd come right back. Like it'd be like mid-sentence freeze. It's like right where I took it off. It's really crazy. But anyway, so they kept telling me, and I was really struggling with this concept. I'm kind of like, okay, how can this be? How can we be happening at the same time? And so they finally said, I think I was frustrating them, and they finally said, okay. They're like, you need to look into Nikola Tesla's work. Look into research into him. Look into his work. And I was like, okay. So I did. After that experience, I went deep dive into Nikola Tesla's work and was like reading about it. And then I could figure out what they were trying to tell me. So so I went back like, yep, now I understand what you all were trying to tell me. So basically, how it's all happening at the same time is time. There's different coordinates for time. So you know how like you have longitude, latitude on the planet to help you get, coordinates to help you get to a certain location. That's the same with time. So they have each time fragment of time, like it has a coordination to it. So literally you can go back and forward in time by placing those coordinates in. So it's very, time travel does exist. You are able to do that. And how it's happening at the same time is it's on different frequencies. So, the past is, here you've got the present or whatever, maybe it's a different frequency, and then the future is a different frequency. So that's how it's able to exist all at the same time. And you can tap into it by tapping into those coordinates. So I thought that was really cool once I figured it out and put it all together. But it was confusing at first because it's like, because we're trained to believe in linear time, but then I figured out, well, linear time doesn't exist. Time is really a spiral, and so it doesn't really exist. Like what we think of time, they have no concept of time. I figured that out too. Like if I was to go to them and say, "Hey, Arcturians, let's hang out together and let's talk on Thursday." Well, they wouldn't know what Thursday is. They have no concept of time or the months or. So it doesn't exist for them. So linear time is a total Earth construct. And so I had to get that kind of mentality out of my head, that programming about time, to be able to grasp what they were trying to tell me. So, and another way to describe it too would be like when you tune into on the radio, you tune into a certain station on the radio, you're tuning into that specific frequency. That's kind of the same with what I'm talking about. Like if you wanted to go to a certain time frame, you would just tune into that frequency and boom, you're there. So it's quite unique. I mean, I think it's really cool, once I figured it out. But that was one of the experiences that they talk about, and there was other like quantum mechanic like instances where trying to teach me, but that was one of the ones that I feel was pretty profound that I wanted to share with you. And so one of the things when I talk about my spirit guides in future videos, I'm like, I got this download. Well, it's part of it's the Arcturians, but also, I also have spirit guides like my mother and father are both deceased, and they regularly visit me. So spirit guides could be, if you're a star seed, it could be your galactic space boy family, but it also could be, ancestors that you had, that you have on earth, or other beings that have been basically that are here to help you out. So your spirit guides can be many of those, or all of those. And I think in my case it's all of those from my experiences. So I'm going to leave it there today with this because I don't want to get too long, but I'm going to come back with a part two about my Arcturian experiences with them. And they got kind of more profound as time went on. I guess they were trying to break it to me easy about being a star seed and not overload me too much with information. But as time went on from that first experience, the experiences got more and more intense. And so I will share that, some more of those with you in the next video, and and explain something, explain those experiences. But it's really cool, and I'm excited to be able to share this with you. So I just feel that people that are star seeds are going to start. And I think if you don't know if you are one yet, and I think people are going to start waking up more and more. I think, I was one of maybe, I don't know what time frame. I know some people had experiences before me, but it's been 10 years that I've been going through this, but I feel like there's some people that are just waking up to being a star seed now. But more and more people, I guess, are going to get the light switch. Like the switch is going to go off and they're going to get turned on and figure out who you are. And I think, and, you're going to start having, and like in my case, it's like having those visions of you in your, galactic life, or, in your space boy life, you're in that part of your life. And you start having those visions more and more to help, it's like it's starting to come back, to who you really are in your soul. And like I said, just like a light switch goes off. So uh, I'm sure more and more people are going to be coming online, so to speak, with that information. But it's just very fascinating, and I just felt like this was a good time to talk about it. So, in the next video, I'll get more deeper into my Arcturian experiences as a starseed and talk about some really cool stuff that's happened to me with them. And started out today was just the first couple experiences, the very first ones, but I'll get more into it in the next video. So, thank you for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed it, and please remember to like and subscribe so that people can get this content. Because when you hit that like button, it sends it out, to more people, and that way more people will see this information. So remember to subscribe as well so that you can get future videos. So thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed it, and look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye bye.